Hey guys, happy Wednesday. I am so glad that you guys have decided to join me yet again for a Wednesday evening devotional. Today we are going to take a quick look at two healing stories that are back to back and that have a lot of similarities, so it's kind of cool. We are in the book of Matthew. Surprise, just kidding. We've been in Matthew forever. We're in the book of Matthew, or the Gospel of Matthew, if you will. And we are in chapter 9, verse 18 through 26. Verse 18 through 26 in chapter 9 of Matthew. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the reading here, and we'll point out a few things, and there we go. So let's read. While he was saying these things to them, suddenly a leader of the synagogue came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be made well." Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. When Jesus came to the leader's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making a commotion, he said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl got up, and the report of this spread throughout the district. So here we have these two really cool healing stories, and they have a lot of similarities in them. First of all, just to give you a little background, Jesus has been traveling, and he finally gets to this spot. So that's what we're talking about here when it says, "Well, he was saying these things to them." So he's speaking to all these crowds as he's traveling through. Then suddenly a leader of the synagogue came in and knelt before him, talking about his daughter. And so then Jesus gets up, follows him with his disciples, and then is interrupted by this other woman who has been bleeding. So the similarities I want to point out here between these two stories. First of all, we got two females here. Cool. Second of all, it has a lot to do with faith. Both the father of the daughter who is dying and also the woman, there is just incredible faith in this part here. So we've got the two females, we got incredible faith in both stories. Next we have Jesus's personal touch. If you look back on these stories, if you have it in front of you, if not, I'm going to tell you anyway. The first one, this woman who has been bleeding for 12 years comes up and touches his cloak. And she says, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be made well." Then Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." Cool, so there's the touch of the cloak. Then, in the second story with the daughter who has died, and there's a funeral going on. It says, when Jesus came to the leader's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making a commotion, like there's a funeral. He says, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." So he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. So again, we have that power of Jesus' touch here. So the first one, Jesus doesn't even touch the person. The person touches his cloak, like a piece of clothing. And the second one, Jesus takes her hand, and she is brought back to life. So we've got that power of touch from Jesus in both stories. And then the last thing that is similar about both of these, that I think is the coolest part, is that both of these stories, both of these women, anticipate the cross. And by that I mean that both of these stories remind us of the cross event that Jesus is going to take part in. That Jesus is going to have. Not take part in, it's his entire event. Sorry about that. It's been a really long day. So I will point this out to you. This first woman, the woman who is bleeding, she bleeds for 12 years. There is the bleeding of Jesus on the cross. There's that bleeding of the woman. It's just a never-ending bleeding. And that is a struggle, and that's really hard, and it affects her whole life. And there is just that it's kind of a continuity is what we're getting at with this one. The continuous suffering and struggle. That kind of bleeding that takes place on the cross with Jesus. That's the first connection to the cross event from this first woman. The second woman is the daughter. She is a daughter, and she is dead. Guess what? Jesus is a son, and he dies, right? So there's that kind of anticipation of the cross. But what's really, really cool about these two healing stories is that in the end, their lives are restored. The first woman, who is bleeding for 12 years, her life is restored because she can now be part of society again. If you were sick back in biblical times, you were kicked out of the community. You couldn't worship in the synagogue. You couldn't walk around the streets normally. You had to pronounce that you were sick. Like it just was not a normal life for you in the society because they thought that you had done something to deserve that sickness. So they didn't want you around. So by Jesus healing her bleeding, he is restoring her life, not only because of the bleeding. I mean, she's lived with it for 12 years, so, that's not really actually causing her to die. But he's restoring her life in the terms of her life back in the community. And then with the second story, the daughter, she is actually dead. And Jesus restores her physical life. So we've got two types of different restoring of life here. And that is also an anticipation of the cross event. So it's just really cool to see the similarities between these two really famous healing stories. I think everybody knows these. But just comparing them side by side and seeing all of the similarities and then seeing how they both anticipate the cross. It was cool to me. It was interesting to me. So I hope it was interesting to you. Again, if you want all the details, if you want more details on chapter 9 and chapter 10, which is what we're doing tonight for our Bible study, please let me know. Reach out to me and I will fill you in because it's so exciting. Also, I will be doing my pre-recorded lesson again on Sunday, so please tune in for that as well. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, an awesome rest of your week. Stay safe, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.